Hello and welcome. There's been a lot of misinformation surrounding this little guy right here. Yep, that was real. But I've seen so much wrong information on YouTube, TikTok, and whatnot about Apple's new savings account. I have a degree in finance, so I want to take what I've learned, and in this video, I want to break down the Apple savings account and give you my review on it. So what is with Apple's new savings account? And I'm sure you're like me and you've heard of the tech giant Apple, but when I think of Apple, I think of overpriced phones, dongles, computers, and I don't think of a bank. Well, when Apple did release their savings account, in just 4 days, they had deposits over $1 billion. So how did Apple get to becoming their own bank? Well, for years, Apple's actually been searching and asking the large banks like Chase and Bank of America to allow their customers to view their deposits and account balances straight from the digital wallet Apple app. Apple app. They really just wanted to make it more convenient for their iPhone users, but this really never worked out for Apple because these banks didn't want to work with Apple. To me, it sounds like a no-brainer. Why would you not want to work with Apple, one of the most innovative companies in the world? But the banks were saying that they didn't want to give Apple that much control. But there was one bank that was eager to join Apple's endeavor into the banking industry. But you see, both of these companies had the same interest aligned. Goldman Sachs is an investment bank, but it never really stepped into that consumer banking space. So when they heard that they could link up with Apple, and Apple could also link up with the 5th largest bank in America, both companies were very satisfied. So Apple doesn't really have a banking entity. They merely just use Goldman Sachs infrastructure, and Goldman Sachs essentially does all the work. Apple does all the marketing, so Goldman is the one who's actually holding the money. But this really isn't something new where a bank will actually use someone else's bank. For example, these high-yield savings accounts do the same thing. The trading platform Robinhood actually uses 6 different banks. Chime Bank partners with Bancorp, and Stash uses Stride Bank, and Acorns uses Lincoln Savings Bank. So it's really not new, we just haven't seen a mega company like Apple doing something like this. Okay, so that's enough background. Let's get into the pros and cons and look into why Apple might be doing this. So what are some good reasons and things on why you might want to consider the Apple savings offering? First off, we have to look at why everyone's so excited about it, and it's that 4.15% APY, which is significantly higher than the national average at 0.06. Let me rephrase that. If you have $10,000 in the Apple account, it will pay you $415 every year just for holding the money in the account. On top of that, Apple has no fees associated with the account, so you won't be making any of those monthly maintenance fees or no overdraft fees either. You just get to keep what you make. Apple's target audience here does not seem to be the uber rich. It's most likely meant for people like you and me, and that's why there is no minimum balance. Historically, high yield savings accounts often would require a minimum balance, and it's usually around $10,000, but in this case, all you need is $1. Of course, like any savings account, your money is insured up to $250,000 with FDIC insurance. And if your account doesn't have FDIC insurance, I would leave that bank as soon as possible. And here's one of my favorite things about the Apple Bank. It's a part of Goldman Sachs, meaning it's tied to a big bank. And this is really big for me because bank failures have been a hot topic lately. And since Goldman Sachs is the 5th largest bank in America, it is very unlikely that this bank fails, so your money should be safe. Now, if you're with a small regional bank, might be a different story. The account is also very easy to use. You can manage everything through your Apple Wallet app, so you have no need to log into a website or on your desktop computer to figure everything out. But Apple's not perfect, so let's take a look at the cons here. The most blatant and the most obvious reason not to get the savings account is you're going to need the Apple Card. So that's right, you're going to have the Apple credit card in order to have the Apple savings account. When I first heard of this savings account, I was actually really excited. It's nothing revolutionary, but I thought it'd be really cool since Apple products are traditionally amazing. They look really cool, but I was disappointed to hear that I would need the Apple credit card. Unfortunately, this service is only available in the US, so if you're watching outside of the US, you are just out of luck. The savings account is also very minimalist. So like many of Apple's other products, the savings account doesn't offer many options in the app, but that also means there's not a lot of features in the account. There are no ATM withdrawals, so because this is a savings account and not a checking account, everything must be transferred out to a different account in order to get access to your money. And there's no direct deposits. There's actually a reason why people usually get savings accounts and checking accounts at the same bank, because it's just convenient. But here you don't have that luxury. I personally don't like spreading my money between a bunch of different accounts when it takes days to transfer money in and out. I'd rather have it in one place. So the Apple savings account has a $250,000 FDIC insurance limit, but at the same time, the whole account is limited at $250,000. And yeah, I know it's high, but there's someone out there that probably wants to put more in it. So what's the reason for Apple wanting to do this? After all, they are just a tech company. So what's the incentive to offer a new banking solution? Tim Cook wants world domination. No, Tim Cook is not an idiot, and he knows it's just another way to make more money. You can't blame a business for wanting to make more money, especially if it's a savings account that ultimately will help help more people to save, which is a good thing. Apple makes money by taking your deposits and then paying you 4.15% interest. But they are most likely taking that money, turning around and buying treasury securities, which yield around 5% interest. So they could be profiting the difference between 4.15 and 5%. It's unclear what's actually going on, but that would be my best guess right now. Apple is known for building these deep ecosystems from phones, speakers, computers, tablets. So now adding a savings account is just going to be another reason for you to buy into their Apple ecosystem. We already know how ridiculous Apple fan loyalty is with Mac and iPhone users. So now when people hear that Apple is trying to help them out with a high yield savings, that's going to just make that loyalty go even higher. And as someone who's an Android user, that annoys the crap out of me. Nah, just kidding. So what are my thoughts on the savings account and why would I never get it? Overall, being honest, I don't really have any major issues with this account. The 4.15% is solid. It's not a revolutionary number like some people say, but it's solid nonetheless. I like how it's a big bank, so your money should be safe, but the big one is I just don't have an Apple card, so I can't even use that account. So is it worth getting the Apple credit card to open an Apple savings? Well, the Apple card isn't an awful credit card, but there are many better options out there. So I would say absolutely no. Do not open a credit card just to save. Think about it. You're opening an account with crazy high interest to rack up debt just to be able to save? No, thank you. Instead, I would look at alternatives like SoFi offering 4.2% or Citizens Bank offering 4.5%. If you really want to maximize interest, you can check out the Goldman Sachs CD accounts offering around 5.05 APY, but you do have to keep your money in there for at least usually around a year. I think the Apple savings account is honestly a good option for those who already have the Apple card. They just want that convenient, easy to use options. I get it. It's honestly not a bad option, but I don't think it's worth getting the credit card just to have a savings account. There are much better options as far as credit cards, and there are better options as far as savings accounts. I do want to point out that high yield savings accounts are tied to the Federal Reserve interest rates. So the 4.15% that Apple is giving is only at this current time. As the federal interest rates lower, I would expect Apple to also lower their savings interest rate in line with the Federal Reserve. Either way, I appreciate Apple coming out with a savings account because Americans are having a lot of trouble savings right now, and this really is a good thing for people that have an Apple credit card. But if you don't have one, do not be getting one. My name is Austin, and if you found the video helpful, I would really appreciate a like. It really goes a long way. And if you're interested in finance or bettering yourself, just please subscribe. All right, I will see you on the next one.